Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Financially Speaking. I'm Kaylee Berenson, a fellow wealth advisor here at Bushka Retirement Solutions and Bushka Wealth Management. Now, listeners, if at any point you want more information on today's topic, feel free to give us a call at 715-355-4445 or reach out to us on our website at retirewithbushka.com. You can also catch up on previous radio or TV shows, and you can subscribe to our radio program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. In addition to that, feel free to check out our YouTube channel where we've uploaded all of our previous radio and TV show episodes for you to view at your leisure. Now, one of the biggest financial challenges out there isn't the stock market or inflation. It's actually something a lot closer to home. It's saving for retirement. A 2024 Go Banking Rate study shared an Investopedia article titled 7 Steps to Create a 10 Years from Retirement Plan and found that nearly 3 in 10 workers haven't saved a dime for retirement. And almost 4 in 10 aren't currently contributing to any type of retirement fund. Now, sure, some people may have a pension to fall back on, but for most people, that safety net just doesn't exist anymore. And that does leave a lot of hardworking people in a tough spot when it comes to stepping away from that paycheck. Now, before we dive in any further, let me bring in my co host, Tony Shore. Tony, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thanks, Kaylee.
Absolutely.
Time is flying faster than my vacation days, that's for sure. Time flies when you're having fun, and the older I get, the faster the years go by. But sometimes days get slower and years go by faster. I don't know
Funny
how
how
that
that
is.
works,
A
right?
year seems like no time at all, and a day seems long. So I don't know when that switch happened, but it did. But that's why I think it's important to have this conversation. I've been good. I've been busy. I
Good.
actually got some stuff done. I stayed home for once this past weekend and got things done. I kind of winterized. You think it's safe to cover the air conditioner, Kaylee? Because I covered my air conditioner. I think we're safe there, right?
I don't know. The weather's been kind of weird this
That's
year. It's hot,
that's
it's cold.
that's true. That's true, but I think we're getting well into winter here. We'll see.
Yep.
How about you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, not a whole lot either. Just keeping busy with the kids and sports and work end of the year. I mean, a lot of client reviews, Roth conversions, getting ready for tax season, all those fun things. So staying very busy as well.
Yeah. Well, your kids keep you really busy, don't they?
They do. Yeah. I don't know how they have all that energy, but if they could give me some, that would be great.
Exactly. I remember when my kids were young and taking them to all their activities.
Yep.
And I thought, oh, this will slow down after it. Just the activity amount increases to the point where you
Great.
actually want them to get their own driver's license. You can't wait. Turn 16 or 17, get that
Right.
license so you can drive yourself to practice or rehearsal or whatever
Absolutely.
function you're going to. So, but I think that's great. Now, you have to figure out how you can make the most of the years you have left
Right.
before you begin that new phase of life. It's a new beginning, retirement. Um, right? Where do you want to begin?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the good news is that it's never too late. But if you've got a strategy that's going to help you close some of those gaps, then it might be, a good idea to use the tools that you've already built and you want to get across that finish line feeling confident about your income.
Yeah. And that's the kind of help everybody can use. So, where do you want to start with that?
Well, the Investopedia article that I mentioned at the beginning of the show has some more potentially useful insights and data for us. The first thing to remember is that 10 years is still enough time to make a real difference. It's never too late to start building a stronger financial foundation. And if you've got a decade before retirement, that's actually a really meaningful window. With a solid strategy and consistent efforts, you can make that meaningful progress towards the goals that you want.
Yeah, that's encouraging. And I think a lot of people hear 10 years or less and panic like they've already missed the boat somehow.
Right.
But you're saying that there's still time to turn that savings around, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the key is going to be taking an honest look at where you are currently. What have you saved so far? What's your income situation look like? And what can you realistically contribute going forward? Once you know all of that, it's about considering some smart adjustments, like maybe cutting a few expenses, redirecting some dollars towards saving, and staying consistent.
Yeah. And that sounds like a mix of awareness and action, getting clear about your current situation and then actually following through on that strategy.
Right. I mean, taking a few deliberate steps now, even if they feel small, it can really make a world of the difference, down the road. And the very first step, it's going to be simple. It's not always the easiest, but you have to assess where you are currently. Most people, they don't love admitting that they might be a little bit behind on their retirement goals, but being honest with yourselves about your current situation is going to be the only way to create a strategy that's going to truly work for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. I think a lot of people avoid this because they don't wanna face the numbers, or
Right.
maybe they just don't know where to begin, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of, what does that kind of assessment actually look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you want to start by looking at how much you've already saved in your accounts that are meant for retirement. So things like your IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, things like those. You want to add all of those up so you have a clear total. And then if you've got taxable accounts, that you plan to use specifically for retirement, make sure that you're including those as well. But leave out things like emergency funds or big purchases that you have earmarked cash for, or things like a new car, home project. You want to see what is really in your retirement bucket.
So basically what you're saying is get everything all on one page, including your real retirement picture, and then keep things like those, emergency funds or vacation savings separate.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicely put. And once you know where you stand, you can start identifying what needs to change. And that's where the real progress really starts to happen. Once that you've figured out where you are right now, the next big step is to identify where your income is actually going to come in retirement. So for many people, their retirement savings are often their IRAs or their 401ks. Maybe they have some other investment accounts that are going to provide, the lion's share of their monthly income, but that's not the only place that it can come from.
Sure, even those accounts, maybe they do the heavy lifting. Many
Right.
people have other sources of income they might overlook, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Social Security is going to be one of the bigger ones. Most workers are going to qualify for those benefits based on their earnings history. So, how long they've worked and the age, when they decide to start taking those benefits. And for some people, especially those who haven't had, been able to save much, Social Security, it might end up being their main source of retirement income.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mhm.
What about pensions, though? I know they're not as common anymore. I always say the pension has gone the way of the pension, but
Right.
some people still have them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are fortunate enough to have a pension, you want to make sure that you are including that, towards your monthly income with your strategy because it is a valuable piece of the puzzle. And if you think you might do some part time work after retiring, whether it's for fun, structure, or just extra income, that should also be factored in as well.
Okay. That's important to do, and it makes sense. It's really about getting that full picture of all the possible income streams in, right?
Yeah, bingo. I mean, here's a quick tip. The government's Social Security website has a retirement benefit estimator, and that's really helpful. You can sit down with your financial services professional and you can get a better idea of what your monthly benefit may look like. So that way you can, start to build your strategy around real numbers instead of just guesswork. And once you've tallied up all of your income sources, it's time to take a step back and then think about what does retirement really mean to you because it's not going to be the same for everyone.
Yeah, it's about slowing down, maybe simplifying. And for others, it's maybe finally having time to see the world or travel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And your goals, they're going to shape, your financial strategy. Someone who plans to downsize to a smaller home and live quiet, modest lifestyles, they're going to have a very different, outlook and strategy than somebody who wants to travel frequently or take up a few big hobbies. So that's why it's going to be important that you create a monthly budget that's going to estimate your regular retirement expenses like housing, groceries, dining out, and leisurely activities, but don't forget to include your health related costs because those can really add up quickly, especially later in life.
Yeah, that's one people sometimes I think underestimate.
Right?
There's health insurance, prescriptions, doctor's visits, and long-term care coverage. I've read that healthcare is going to be one of the most costly things that people will face in retirement, even with Medicare. The
Mhm.
out-of-pocket expenses are going to be quite big for a lot of people over the course of their retirement.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, those costs, they can really climb. And according to the 2024 Fidelity Retiree Healthcare Cost Estimate referenced in this article, a typical 65-year-old can expect to spend around $165,000 on healthcare expenses during retirement. So it's worth strategizing for that now while you still have time to adjust and prepare for that.
Yeah, and that's for an individual, you said.
Right.
For couples, I've read it's over $300,000 over the course of
Absolutely.
their retirement. That's a big number, but it's good to have that perspective because I think it really drives home just how important it is to know what kind of retirement you want and what it's going to take to support it.
Right. And once you've defined those goals, the rest of your strategy and building process, you have direction now. It's not just about saving, but it's about saving for something specific.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Now, before we continue with this conversation today, Kaylee, let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you and the team there for that no charge, no obligation consultation. If they want to ask questions, help build that financial strategy that can keep them on course toward retirement.
Absolutely. They can give us a call at 715-355-4445 or visit us online at retirewithbushka.com. Scheduling a consultation, it only takes a few minutes and we're always happy to work around your schedule. Now, back to today's topic. Once you know what kind of retirement you want and what it might cost, the next big question is, when do you actually want to retire? So, someone who's 10 years away could be as young as 45 if they've built a solid foundation and are eager to step away early, or they might be 65 or even 70 and still catching up.
Yeah. Or they may be 65 or 70 and just love their job.
Right.
But
Yep.
that's a pretty big range, and I guess the big factor is how long you'll need your savings to last once you stop working, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And for many people, retirement can last 30 years or more. So a retirement strategy isn't just about how much you're going to be spending, but it's also about how long you're going to need to cover those expenses. And so a retirement that's going to last 3 or 4 decades can look very different from one that's only half as long. So while early retirement can sound appealing, the key is finding a realistic target that's going to balance what you've saved and how long those savings need to stretch for.
Sure. So what you're saying is it's less about hitting a specific age and more about hitting that point where your money will actually be able to support the lifestyle you want, right?
That's right. And the best way, to set a target retirement date is to ask, when will I have enough to live comfortably without running out of money? And when you're making those estimates, it's always smart to be conservative and to assume that you're going to live longer, spend a little bit more, and earn a little bit less so that you have the best case scenario.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I know part of that question and equation is cleaning up any debt before retirement, especially high interest debt, right?
Yeah, you've got that right. I mean, eliminating debt, especially credit cards and other high interest balances, is going to be crucial. The less that you owe heading into retirement, the more flexibility and financial peace of mind that you're going to have once you get there. All right, so once you've pulled together all of your numbers, so what income you expect and what you plan to spend, now it's time to face the most important question of all. Do you have enough?
Huh. Well, that's a big question. That's the question everybody wants to know.
It
And I
is.
know you've said before, Kaylee, that when people come to you, most people think they don't have enough. A lot of them. I mean, there are some people that are the opposite. They're like, "Oh, I'm sure I've got enough,"
Mhm.
but most people always think they need more, even when they don't. Right? I mean, so you need to have somebody like yourself, though, help you figure it out. A lot of people, when they come into you, they probably think, well, we won't be able to retire for, we'd like to retire in 2 years, but we're going to probably need another 5 or 10. And you do the numbers
Mhm.
and say, actually, you could retire next year. So
Yeah.
that's the moment of truth, isn't it? I mean, you finally see if what you've built will recover the retirement you want.
Right. And it really is. I mean, you've got it right on the nail there. If your assets already meet or exceed, what you'll need, then great. Now just stay consistent and keep contributing and stick with the strategy that you currently have. But if you find that there's a gap between what you have and what you need, well, now is the time to take action.
Yeah. So, what can somebody do if they realize they're behind and maybe 10 years doesn't seem like enough time to play catch up?
Yeah, I mean, it's true that 10 years it can really fly by, like we talked about in the beginning of the show today. But it's still enough time to make meaningful progress. So you may need to increase your savings rate. You may need to cut back on some non essential spending habits. And the key is to figure out exactly how much more you're going to need to save, then adjust your contributions, whether it's in your IRA, 401k, or any other investment accounts. One of the best ways to stay consistent is to set up automated contributions. So, whether that's through your payroll or directly from your bank, that set it and forget it mentality really helps you stay disciplined.
Yeah, I love that, Kaylee, because if money hits my checking account, I always say to my wife Sarah, that's our general fund, and we know if money hits there, we spend it. So
Yep.
it's great to have money go right out of your paycheck into those retirement accounts or into a savings account, so it
Hmm.
doesn't really hit your. Because if I never see it, I never miss it, right?
Exactly.
And I put
Exactly.
that money out of my mind because in my mind, I don't have
Mhm.
that money. That's for future Tony. That's not for me.
Right.
Future
Exactly.
Tony, and future family, that's what that money's for, not current Tony, not me. And I think that's a big one, and
Yep.
the more you can do that, the better. But another big thing here, and I'm sure you were gonna mention this, but I wanted to ask debt.
Hmm.
We alluded to it at the beginning. Debt can really eat away at your savings potential, and you don't want to carry too much high interest debt into retirement, right?
Right. You want to attack that debt, especially high interest debt like credit cards. So, Americans' credit card debt has reached about $1.16 trillion dollars in 2024. And the average balance was around $6,700, according to Experian. Those interest rates can be brutal, and paying them off can make a dramatic difference in your monthly budget.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. 1.616 trillion.
Yeah,
That's real money even to you, Kaylee. I mean,
it
that's
sure is. Okay, Tony.
that's huge though. Seriously, I like that you said there's no magic trick here. It's just smart strategizing and staying consistent to get that paid down, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no quick fix, but with the right mindset, accountability, and a clear strategy in place, then you're able to close that gap. And sometimes that may mean, adjusting expectations or learning to live on a little bit less, but that's all part of creating a retirement that's going to work for you. One more thing, I think that, as you get close to retirement, it's not the time to take on extra risk. I mean, high risk investments might make sense earlier in life, but in those final years before retirement, protecting what you've built can really be just as important as growing it.
Hmm. I think that's another great point because it's
Mhm.
all about balance and protecting the progress you've made.
Right. And as you get closer to retirement, another key piece of the puzzle is understanding your risk tolerance or how much fluctuation in the market you can handle without losing sleep at night.
Yeah, you need a plan. Losing sleep at night's a big one because
Yeah.
the main thing people worry about is money. And the main thing, especially regarding retirement, is will I have enough money to
Right.
last? Will my money last as long as I do? And that's where you come in. You're offering what I call the SWAN plan, SWAN, sleep well at night, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your yeah, your risk tolerance, it really can naturally shift with age as well. As you approach retirement, you may want to consider making your portfolio more conservative, especially if your priority is preserving what you've worked so hard to build. And because if a bear market hits just a few years before you want to retire, it can really throw your timing off. And at this stage, I mean, many retirees, they focus on a mix of high quality dividend paying stocks and investment grade bonds. And that kind of balance, it can really help provide a blend of conservative growth and income.
Yeah. And that makes sense to me. I mean, a lot of people worry about market volatility affecting their retirement, but
Mhm.
I know that's why you work so hard on plans to even that out, make sure there's some safe money they have to pull from when the markets are down versus pulling it out of the accounts that are directly in the stock market, and
Right.
a reliable income versus chasing those big returns. That's going to have to happen more and more as you get older or closer to retirement, right?
Right. And there's a simple guideline that a lot of people like to use. So if you take your age and you subtract it from 110, that's going to give you a rough idea of what your portfolio should be when it comes to stocks. So for example, if you're 70 years old, then you might target, around 40% stocks and 60% bonds.
Hmm. That's an
Mhm.
interesting strategy to consider, and at least it's a starting point trying to figure out how to keep that balance because
Right.
it's easy to remember.
Mhm.
But what about people, Kaylee, that are behind on their savings? I can imagine that some people out there might be tempted to take on more risk to try to
Mhm.
catch up.
Yep. And that is a very common thought. And it's also one of the riskiest moves that people can make. So, sure, taking on extra risk might occasionally pay off, but it often produces mixed results. So, you could end up, investing aggressively at exactly the wrong time and making your problem even worse. Adding some additional risk, it might be appropriate depending on your comfort level, but the key word, is measured here. So for someone increasing equity exposure, it may make sense, but if there's big swings, it can get really dangerous pretty fast.
Yeah, yeah, you don't wanna take on too much risk, especially as you get closer just to try to make up for lost ground. You might be
Right.
better off working 1 more year and have that steady savings plan, but again, everybody's situation is different, everybody's
Hmm.
timeline is different, so you wanna work with a trusted financial services professional
Right.
like you and the team there, at Bushka, and it's really about balance is what you've
Hmm.
been talking about and not getting too cautious too early, but
Hmm.
not gambling with your nest egg when you're close to using it. Am I
Yeah,
right?
that's a great summary. I mean, it's all about protecting, your future while still keeping your money working for you, which, is a thoughtful middle ground to take.
Mhm.
Possibly one of the smartest moves anyone can make, especially if you're within 10 years of retirement, is to get that professional guidance like you had mentioned. Money management, it isn't a do-it-yourself project for many people, and that's okay. So consulting with a financial services professional may be a really wise step for you.
Yeah, I would think it would definitely be a wise step because
Mhm.
DIY things have gotten too complicated to do all this yourself, and there are
Right.
so many financial pitfalls and tax planning mistakes, estate planning mistakes,
Mhm.
um, budgeting mistakes, not including things you need to include, and not realizing, like inflation and a number of other things.
Right.
Because people who are pretty good with money can miss things when it comes to all the moving parts like investments, taxes, and enhanced planning.
Yeah, absolutely. Said that perfectly. And even like legislative changes too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that get changed and a lot of people aren't aware of those. So, working with an experienced financial services professional may help you make sure that your portfolio is going to stay properly balanced for your risk level and the goals that you're trying to accomplish. Depending on your situation, they can also provide insight into the bigger picture topics like enhanced planning, legacy strategies, or income distribution once you actually retire.
Yeah, and I think more peace of mind, can be valuable, and
Mhm.
that's such an important thing that you provide to your clients and people you work with. Now, I think a lot of listeners are probably wondering or asking the big question, how much money do I actually need to retire? I see articles all the time. You need X amount. You need $1 million
Mhm.
dollars to retire, or you need 1.3, or you need 2, or you need 750,000.
Mhm. Right.
That I see all different numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that is the million dollar question, and sometimes literally.
Yeah.
The truth is, everybody's number is going to be different, and it is going to depend on what their goals are, what their lifestyle looks like, and what are their specific needs. But there is a common strategy that may help you get a ballpark estimate. So many financial services professionals suggest aiming to have about 10 times your annual income saved by age 67. So it's not a perfect formula, but it kind of gives you a good idea to start building a strategy.
Yeah, and that's really, really important. You gotta build that strategy.
Mhm.
But what if somebody's listening out there and thinking, "Uh-oh, I'm nowhere near that number."
Well, that's also a common concern, and here's the good news. Again, it's never too late to start making progress. If you find yourself short of your retirement goal, start by reassessing your spending and your saving habits. Maximizing contributions to tax advantage accounts like your 401ks and IRAs, it can be a really powerful tool. And if you've already retired or you're close to it, consider some lifestyle adjustments. Maybe you have to downsize or move to a lower cost area. Maybe you do work part time for just a few more years to just boost that income and stretch your savings longer.
Yeah. So, it's about staying proactive and finding ways to adapt instead of just giving up on the goal.
Right. Think of it as a wake up call, not a dead end. If you're in your mid 50s or your early 60s, those are often your highest earning years. The kids might be grown, the mortgage might be smaller, which means that you have a window to really start to catch up. Tightening your belt a little bit more now can make a huge difference later down the road. And it's much better to make your adjustments in your 50s than to be forced to do so in your 80s when your options are much more limited.
Right, and right there, this is why you're the host, Kaylee, because that is such solid advice and honestly empowering. No matter where you are, you can still take control of your future.
That's exactly the message we're trying to get across here. I mean, start where you are, build a strategy, and keep moving forward. Small, consistent steps really they make a long way towards your retirement you want.
Yeah, they can really do that. They can get you
Mhm.
to where you need to go in retirement. And
Yep.
this has been another fantastic show. Kaylee, anything else you want to add before we go today?
Well, listeners, if you have any questions about retirement or your financial strategy, visit our website at retirewithbushka.com or give us a call at 715-355-4445. We'd love to help you protect your savings and feel confident about your road ahead.
All right. Well, Kaylee, great show today. That is fantastic. I encourage our listeners out there to pick up the phone, give Kaylee and the team at Bushka a call, Bushka Wealth Management. They can set up that no charge, no obligation consultation. And that does it for today's episode of Financially Speaking with our host, Kaylee Berenson.
Thank you, Tony. Join us next time for another great episode of Financially Speaking.